Welcome, everybody, to the Legendarium Green Team. Today, we're discussing Wrath, Book 4 of John Gwynne's Faithful and the Fallen. We finally did it, and with me today, I have Eradandis.
Hello.
And Soul.
Wrath.
And I am your host, Yettibeats, and we are full of blood and vengeance and...
blood for the blood god.
Smiles.
You stole my line. So.
Well, you shouldn't have been saying it for the entire series we've been reading the whole time. Every time something happens, like, hey, this happened. There was like, blood for the blood god.
Someone stubbed their toe.
That's all I can think about, yeah.
Yeah, hey, it's been a long journey, mostly because I'm a slow reader. But hey, it makes it feel a little more epic, I think. Just, been together for a few months now. And I'll just say I had a great time reading this. I had a great time reading it with you guys and seeing your reactions for the first time. And yeah, I don't know. This series is... John Gwynne knows how to pack emotional punches and fill a story with adrenaline. I have a lot of nitpicks and I have other problems with it, but when I finish it, Wrath and the series, I was like, this was a bunch of fun and I want to read more John Gwynne. So, I feel like you can get as specific as we want about what worked and what didn't work, but at the end of the day, what else do you want as an author to have a reader do that? So, what about you, Soul? How was Wrath and the end of the journey for you?
I had a great time. I really enjoy. I don't do it that often. Normally, I'll just binge a book. I'm on my own. I'll go through a series if I like it. If not, I drop it. But to have a group, this is basically a book club where I'm reading the book, and then guess what? I gotta stop. I gotta record it. I can't go on because there's that peer pressure, and you're like, so you're really diving into these things, and that's what's really fun. Is I don't do it for a lot of things, but this is one of the ones that really hit when for that style. It was fun. It's a great book, great series. I had a lot of fun. Like you said, there's flaws, but for the most part, it was very enjoyable.
And Era, did this live up to the hype, this last book and the series as a whole?
I enjoyed this series. So this series reminded me of why I liked reading in the first place. Right? It's just the
Good way
character,
to put
it was fun. And look, he had his emotional beats and there were things you can get into, or you could just read it on the surface level. It was fun. And to add to the fun part, I normally don't like sharing books with people because it's my journey and then whatever. But this one, I really, really enjoyed sharing with you guys, kind of stopping, going, hey, have you gotten to, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. And,
Yeah.
So that was a lot of fun. And look, the best compliment I can give John Gwynne is that I put more money in his pocket because I bought the next series already when I finished Wrath. I'm looking forward to reading more books in his world. I, like the rest of you guys, look, we're going to talk about some things that, we think could be improved on, or there were some nitpicks, but they're nitpicks. They're not, it doesn't detract from what I took away as my overall enjoyment of the series.
Agreed. Yeah.
Yeah, you put it well. I was just telling Soul before we hopped on, like, it made me feel kind of like how I read when I was reading as a kid. That got me into fantasy, which doesn't always happen. And so at the end of the day, when it can get me feeling like that, certain moments, particularly at the end of this book, when he's wrapping things up in storylines, I'm just like, I'm kind of shaking because there's things that you wanted to happen or weren't expecting to happen, but at least it was coming to this big emotional conclusion. And so yeah, that was real fun to read and to experience with you guys. So I don't know. I think just before we get into it, a lot of people might listen to this in general, the spoiler-free section, wondering if it's for them. And I feel like this is a pretty broad, if you like to read fantasy for entertainment, there's more to it than that, as Era said, but just solely on an entertainment value and just getting caught up in the act of reading and the, what that brings. I feel like I can't recommend this enough to people on the Discord.
if somebody likes, for example, the CW with like their Arrowverse series with like the Green Arrow and the Flash and all that, I
Yeah.
can see this book or the series being made into a TV series like that, right? And
Mm.
mind you, if you watch it, you're not going to go in there and expecting like I'm going to have political discourse, like major political discourse. You're going to have some things, and there's going to be elements there, but it's fun, right?
Yeah.
And
Okay.
I think of
Uh,
it like, oh, good, Soul.
no, I was like, what about like an HBO? I was like, no, I don't think HBO or something like that could do this. But I feel like CW has bad connotations a little bit. I feel like there's a little bit of an insult, but
CW with a higher budget, I feel like if they were to have a
okay.
higher budget, because
Okay.
fantasy
well,
needs it. But
Maybe
look,
sci-fi, but if it doesn't get canceled.
fine, okay. Well, when I was thinking CW, I was thinking like, look, okay, I don't want to get diverted into it, but anyway, so my son is a huge Flash fan, just a
Okay.
tremendous Flash fan,
solid
Okay.
show.
and so
For the
I
first
saw
couple
the first
seasons.
couple seasons of Flash, and I'm like, this is pretty. I mean, like,
It's all right. Yeah, it's
yeah,
fun.
it's like, good. Like the special effects are pretty good. It's fun.
Yeah.
It's entertaining. They got to do some deeper stuff in the first series because he's an orphan and kind of all that stuff. I'm like, it hit all the beats. It did it appropriately. So I meant it like in that sense.
All right. That's fair.
Like when I finish this book, I'm gonna try to pull something off here. You guys can try to follow. I was trying to think. This metaphor that kept coming to me was in the Philadelphia area. We have great places to eat food. Like there's just so many good places to eat. But this reminded me of like a food place that has a menu that's like a novel where there's just like 7 pages. They have like 20 different types of cheese fries and chili fries
Mhm.
and egg roll fries. And that's awesome. There's so many options. You're almost kind of flabbergasted. And I like eating at those places, but it's not the same as like a place that has a menu of 10 items that are all delicious and like remembered for. And I feel like that was kind of like this series where it's definitely enjoyable, but he doesn't super go into the weeds on one thing exactly. You know what I mean? He spreads it out where there's a lot of different type of politicking or history with the gods or familial relations, but he doesn't go in like maybe other books would really hone in on one thing, if that makes sense. And so you have a lot of stuff that work and are entertaining, but not maybe as juicy as maybe some of the other books, if that makes
If I
sense.
may, so this probably does get into one of my nitpicks, and it's just an overall kind of thing. But I actually do mean this in a positive way because, as you put it to us when we first started reading the book, this was Gwynne's first, second, third, and fourth book.
Yep.
So
True.
I'm looking kind of like at a growth process here, and I bet if we were to ask Gwynne today, what's the one thing you would change to this particular series? I bet you his number one thing he'd say is, I would have less point of views.
100%.
I would stick to 2, 3, 4 point of views, hone in on them, and tell the story through them, and then have the other interactions I want to talk about, like kind of have that happen through those point of views and how those people are being viewed. Because to me, that was the one. Your point of like a menu with a whole bunch of items. Well, it's a whole bunch of items, some of which are half cooked, some of which are three-quarters cooked, and then some which are fully cooked and delicious. So that's kind of where to me, the weakness is. There are some storylines that were picked up and started and then never finished. Some that started later. Some
Mm.
that didn't really get finished.
Only in one book, but
Correct.
I do want to stress, like I liked all those POVs. Like it wasn't any POVs where I'm like, this stinks. It's just
Mhm.
like the
Yeah.
menu I was talking about. I like all this food, but I didn't. Some of them, as you said, weren't fully cooked. I didn't love it. Like that's only a couple. So I think that's difference between him and maybe other authors who focus on 3 POVs and you're really getting in on those characters. It's just a writing
I'm
choice,
gonna
I thought.
disagree with Era. I think that if you would ask Gwyn, yeah, exactly, yeah. If you would ask Gwyn now, he would keep the amount of POVs, but I think he would try and be less ambitious with his plot and try to have a tighter plot because I feel like
It's probably true.
to get his POVs down by any significant amount for the epic fantasy he was trying to tell, I don't think it would work as well. I think he just needs to Kill your darlings as far as the plot lines go. Like a couple of them, he needs to just kind of condense them a little bit, or maybe cut out some extraneous ones.
Well, we're still in the spoiler-free section, but I'm
Yeah.
actually thinking of a couple specific storylines where I think the book loses nothing from just deleting them entirely.
Yeah,
I'm
agreed.
gonna bring. I'm definitely bringing that up 100%. Yep.
So, but again, this is a quibble because to your
Yeah.
point,
These are
eh,
nitpicks. Had a
yeah,
great time.
it's not like, oh my god, I did not like.
No.
This is rare, and I'm gonna pick on something that I know you don't like, Yeti. So deal with it.
Oh boy.
So Robert Jordan. So you
Yes.
can just earmuffs. You can earmuffs the next 30 seconds, Yeti.
Earmuffs just for me and Era.
Okay. There are some POVs that I would read through every single book and never be bored with it. And there were some that I'm like, oh my god, do I have to read? I have to read however many pages of this crap before I can get to something that I like.
Yeah.
I never ever had that feeling with any of Gwynne's POVs. I wanted to read every single POV.
It's a good sign. Yeah, when we have to get a POV and I'm like, all right, I don't want this person, and I'm going to the chapters to be like, all right, how many pages until I get to the one I want? That's usually a bad sign for me, anyways. But like you said, I never did that once for honestly any of maybe a couple times just because maybe he ended on a cliffhanger and I was like, all right, I got to get to Corbin. I got to know what happened. And I'm like, no. But that's a good thing because he has me in anticipation and not in annoyance or irritation.
You talked like I'm a big Robert Jordan fan. I love Robert Jordan bashing. What's going on here?
Yeah.
All right. Let's get into the weeds, shall we, boys?
Yes.
Oh, but no, wait. But before we get into the spoilers, how would you? I'm gonna put you on the spot, Yeti. How would you
good.
rank? How would you rank the books in order?
Oh.
I would rank Malice first. I'm trying to think what we did this before, and this I might be totally different, but I was thinking on all of it.
Yeah.
I was thinking on it all again. Well, no, Valor first, Malice second. Wrath and Ruin. I'll put Wrath then Ruin. The end of Wrath really put it over the top for me. But I do have a lot of nitpicks into certain storylines. But I was shocked at the end how emotional I got, and like I sent a message to you guys. I was like, I'm ready. When's the next Gwynne book? I was like, I wish I could read like what would happen to these guys 40 years later. So I wasn't expecting to feel that way again because I was kind of nitpicking near the middle to the end. But then I was just totally engripped in like the last 200 pages. I'm like, let's go. So I think I'd put Wrath above Ruin a little bit, but they're all pretty close. They're all separated by, they're all just in the same category as me. This was just an enjoying read. No book felt like a slog.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? At certain points, I might have rolled my eyes at some or, had, cursed at the birds multiple times, but I was always having fun. I really just enjoyed reading these, even trying to look at it more critically because of this podcast.
Yeah.
Soul?
Definitely going Mouse first. I know. Wrath second.
Ooh.
Whoa.
Yeah. Well, because it's an ending. When you have a good beginning and you have a fun ending. Well, not just fun. I don't want to say fun, but when you have an ending, satisfying to read and to enjoy, and you feel like you've completed the book and it's something that sticks with you, that stays with me. So that earns a high place. And then after that, it's a toss up between 2 and 3 for Ruin and Valor.
Era?
So Malice is one. That to me is the easy one is Malice. So Valor I felt was better written. Ruin had better storylines. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that's fair.
I was thinking that too. Ruin did have good, wherever a character was at that book.
Right. And Wrath is the wrap up. So,
you gotta love the wrap ups. Come on, that's the whole reason we gotta finish the series.
Wait, what? No, Valor was the one. We can talk about spoilers. The other books. Valor's the one with like the fighting pits, right?
Valor's the fighting
Yeah.
pits.
Yeah,
Which
that's a
the,
far number one for me. I mean, yeah,
so,
that's yeah.
and then Ruin is the Benelum reveal.
Yeah.
Yes, that was interesting.
So I'm gonna go in book order. I think
Wow.
almost Malice Valor, Wrath Ruin.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we all have a little different one then, right? We
A
all,
little bit. Yeah.
yeah. Awesome. Well, let's get into it before this was a 3-hour episode. And I'm ready to.
And I was like, we're gonna do this quick for Yeti too. We're already going way past what I thought for this.
That's all right. It's the last book. Got to go big.
I know.
All right, I'm gonna give a week recap, but we'll see how we get through it. So we pretty much take place right after the events of Ruin. Calidus and the gang kind of retook Drassel for the most part, and are trying to build roads. Our main thing is that Corbin is taken by the bear giants, and he kind of gets taken there and surprisingly bonds and wins them over. McKinn is out for blood. First thing he does is go kill his jail. And Gar and the gang do a rescue mission with Corbin. Veritas joins up with our heroes. He is now on cross the picket line into Team Good Guy with Alcyon. And so they have that home base there, trying to figure out how they're going to defeat Calidus. And eventually everyone finally pulls together after Adana and her crew kill what's his face, Mordecai. No, that really evil Rin's one captain. I'll think of it. And eventually, essentially, after everyone's cleaning up their own plots and their own bad guys, they all meet at Drassel, except for McKinn, who goes off to chase Lycos because Fidel once again got captured. For some reason, she decided to leave the safety of the group, gets captured by Lycos again. They go to an island to get one of the last treasures. That's where we find out that Era literally predicted this exact scenario in our second episode of this series, where Lycos or Fidel dies, essentially kills herself from Lycos' hand. McKinn goes into feral rage, hunts down Lycos by the end of the book, and essentially the last chunk of the book is everyone just fighting at Drassel to save the world. The Benelium are released for the Kadashim. They're flying around fighting. Corbin fights Calidus, loses a bunch of family, Gar and everyone, goes into the Shadow Realm after he kills Calidus in the real world and feeds him to that one creepy lake guy. And essentially, I think a big point is after the good guys win, that the Benelim are still hanging around, are now part of civilization after Azeroth has been frozen solid along with Mykael. And that's how the story ends, with people going their own ways and Adana marrying Connell for some godforsaken reason, and Corbin and the gang creating their own kind of crew that are going to go hunt down Kadashim, which sounds awesome. And I would love a novella of just that.
Yeti, I have to interrupt this very important podcast to say this.
I have 20 texts of what you're talking about right now.
No.
Shout out Emperor.
Yeah.
The Heat have beat the Celtics and are now up 2-0.
Yes.
The Celtics suck. All right.
Yeah, that's right. Hometown. Panthers playing tomorrow.
That whole spoiler-free section, I was trying to pay attention to you guys while I was getting 50 texts from my Sixer friends turning into Heat fans. So anyway, sorry. I'm sure this will age well years from now. So yeah, that was kind of a cruddy kind of recap, but that's kind of essentially what it is. People are kind of doing their own thing until they, like epic fantasy, get back together and take on the bad guy. I'll be a good host, and I'm curious. Era, I'll let you pick the character you want to start with the most to set our conversation off in whatever direction we want to go, any part of the story.
So I'm torn because there's my favorite character. There's the one that I need to own myself on. So kind of, you guys tell me which one of those two, and I'll
do the latter. Let's get
own
into
yourself.
It. I've never been more wrong about a character in my life than Camblin. I mean, I went in and I'm like, okay, this is gonna be the typical series. Bad guy's gonna turn good, whatever, blah 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 blah. but John Gwynne executed his redemptive turn so well, and kind of to see the arc being completed in Wrath, and to see, I mean, I don't want to say Camlin growing up, but to see Camlin become more than he realized he could be. And I say that he realized he could be because Gwynne executed it so well. Where, you know, Camlin was harder on himself than anybody else was. And you got to see how Adana, whether genuine or not, executed tremendous leadership skills to build Camlin up and to bind his loyalty to him. So let's start with Camlin.
I like how you brought up Adana because they're kind of linked in the theme of their kind of arc, whereas like she is becoming a leader and it's kind of in the background through the story, but it's progressively showing by the talk she's having, by kind of the time she steps up to take charge or make decisions. And you're right. Throughout the story, Camlin has like imposter syndrome. I feel like us as readers, we're reading him and we're saying like, dude, you've done so much for this crew. Like you very well may be second most important in the story behind Corbin as us as readers, just how much he's gotten them out of tight spots or the way he thinks. And he just still thinks he's like an imposter and saying like, what am I doing here type of thing. And Adana is the one who always comes to build him up.
And I just want to stay on that just for a second before we toss it over to Soul. I like that we never got an Adana POV. I actually thought that was a very good move to never give us an Adana POV. We're only seeing her through other people's eyes, so we never actually know what she's thinking. And I genuinely like that. I thought that was a very smart move on his part. And two, Adana has a whole bunch of advisors throughout the series. Halion, Pendrathan, the list goes on. Royson, her son, Royson's son who dies. I forget. Right. Anyways, there's a whole bunch, right?
Forgot about that scene.
Yeah, I did like that scene.
That's a fun scene. Yeah.
But Camlin, he's like the best admixture of all of them. He's loyal, like Pendrathan. He's competent like Halion. He's sneaky like Voice, and like he has all these qualities. He embodies it in one character. Anyways, so go ahead.
You guys hit on so much. No, he's a great character. It was the growth of his morality, which was what made him so interesting. And like you said, he had this imposter syndrome, and we could obviously see that he was getting better, but it just felt real to see someone struggle with how do you judge yourself when you know you've done terrible things and you can't make up for that no matter what you do, but yet you're still doing good things for the world. And in a world that's as gray as this entire series, how do you judge that? Like when you're seeing war going on and you're like, all right, I'm doing what I can, but you're like, are you ever on the right side of the war? What's going on? So it's just little stuff like that Gwynne did a great job, and that's what made Camlin so interesting. And my favorite part of Camlin is the fact that he did not have romantic feelings towards Adana, thankfully, because that kept getting teased almost. Now they really didn't want that to happen, and it was a very platonic relationship of mentor-mentee almost, where it's just someone is his, not idol, because I feel like that's too strong, but it is his goal to be a better person for her and for the country, and she's a symbol to him of his growth.
Yeah, for sure. It would have diminished this loyalty he's built up with Adana if it made it into like a romantic sense, and yeah, you kind of touched on it. I love how I think you said he was real, and I do think he's one of the more real characters that was written, just in my experience, the way he felt guilt. Like you said, the one Rosen's son, when he dies, he felt guilt immediately. He shouldn't have put him in that situation. When Rafe kills his one friend, when they've got him cornered and he turns his back and he kills, like, I think his no neck or one of those guys.
Yeah.
And that's when he starts going on like a rampage to go hunt Rafe. But he feels immense guilt that he should have known better. And I always liked that. It just felt real to me when he's making these decisions that he's still feeling guilt, even though, like, again, I can't stress enough how vital he was to that group to still be alive and still get them throughout all books. Yet, even though when he loses one person, it's not even his fault, he still feels that guilt. And that really resonated with me, that he was always still fighting that urge to just kind of be down on himself, things like that.
And he took out Rafe like a bee.
Yeah,
Yeah.
he had enough of him. I mean, I did too.
No, well, and so that, and I kind of said that half jokingly, but the serious part of it is Camlin has grown tremendously as a person, but what's never left him, and what Gwynne was consistent with this throughout the books, so I want to give him credit for that. Camlin never lost his sense of ruthlessness.
Yeah.
Like, his ruthlessness was redirected. He's like, I'm doing this in service of Adana.
Yeah, you see that with Evnus and all other kinds of stuff. Like,
Yeah.
he's not afraid to just take the shot and just he's like, no, that's it.
I'll do the dirty work. I don't care, because it's the right. I know it's the right thing to do. And if anybody's gonna be called the bad guy, let it be me. But anyways, I say that to say, Camlin was one of the more well-developed characters throughout the story. Even though Camlin himself didn't play a major role in the events of the world, I thought he played a major part in the events of the story.
Yeah, definitely. I think you can make an argument he played a major part in the events of the world too, just by keeping, Adana alive and that crew who were, they helped in that final battle and things like that. And I think he helped plan with Corbin and stuff at the end. So I still think he's pretty vital. But you're right. In the grand scheme of things, he wouldn't be looked upon as one of the bigger, the bigger heroes, even though he probably should be. So yeah, I don't have too much more to say with Camlin. I feel like he was just so well done throughout all 4 books, where it's hard for me, he didn't stand out super much this book, because I'm just like, yeah, this guy's been awesome for 4 books now.
Can I contrast him with another person who was at least on part of his journey?
Yeah,
sure.
Connell and Hallion.
Oh man, do we want to get into that right now?
Yeah, no, might as well.
Go ahead. Yeah.
Look, I mean, I love the way that whole story started. Malice was the high point of that whole relationship in the POV.
Yeah.
And that was it. I mean, it was, I don't even want to call it half cooked in the story. It was uncooked. It was just, let me throw something out there so that Connell has a reason to be a good guy. It's all going to happen off screen. And I detested the fact that Connell became a good guy, and I'm using good guy in air quotes. He's not a good guy. He's a selfish guy. He's going to go whichever way the winds blow him that benefits him the most. And anyways, I did not like the way. I don't mind the way the story ended for where Hallion died and Connell survived. Whatever. I kind of expected it. That doesn't bother me. What bothered me was the execution of it in this book.
Yeah, well, that's what bothers me, is that did you have any reaction to Hallion dying? Like, really? No, I didn't.
Well, actually, I did. I didn't want him to die, but I did not care about Connell being a good guy, like you said, because I think this mostly I chalk this up to Gwynne's writing, like still getting.
Right.
He's trying. This is his first wrap up of an epic fantasy.
Well, you said
this is his 4th book, but
the plotting is where I think he really has to learn as an author, and I'm sure he will. But this is where he didn't really follow up on a storyline. He's like, I did a lot with Hallion in the 1st, 2nd books, and then he was kind of background fodder with Adana. And at this point, I mean, he was barely in this in this book. So when he dies, I'm like, I was shocked. I'm like, oh no,
right.
But I wasn't like,
but
I wasn't
it was
torn.
800, maybe 1,000, 1,200 pages since we really actually got anything of him that was relevant.
If I felt the way yeah, if I felt the way I did after the first book, I would have definitely been torn. I'd be like, oh, that guy's the man. He was such a good
Yeah.
arc, but it was just abandoned essentially. So that was frustrating. And then Connell, oh my God, him marrying Adana. What is it? Well, how does that make any sense in the plot ever? I'd be more fine if Vaughn, I don't know, someone. It just came out of the blue. Why would she just want to?
Everybody marries everybody in the first book, and or at least they're like saying, "Oh, so and so's always got to be betrothed and they're married to
Right,
so
I
and
get
so," and I'm like,
yeah,
"All right, whatever." But
it's a
it's fine.
political marriage. That's what
Yeah,
they said essentially, but it's just still like I don't know. Like,
yeah.
that was kind of
I
hogwash.
don't detest it like Ari said, but I don't. I don't really care about any of that.
Can I bring up one of my nitpicks real quick
Go ahead.
since it's Connell. So in the beginning of the book or the Malice, and I should have brought this up in like the second book or whatever. Rin is chasing Halion and Connell. Wants him executed, but then he wins the battle, that fight, and so he's going to be her first sword. I thought she wanted him dead. Ooh. And then she's using him. Like it felt like such a vast, like these two dudes were running away from you, and now you're her first sword. Like you can find other first.
Let,
It felt like that
let
was
me
totally abandoned. I don't know.
let me excuse that a little bit. I'm not saying you're wrong because through the first 2 3/4 of the books, Rin was consistently displayed as manipulative and smart, etc. And then she drank from the cup and became a complete blithering idiot. So uh, I don't know because everybody we know in the story that drank the cup became physically fit and a blithering idiot. So I can't tell you whether that was a side effect of the cup or not. So
That's that's a good point. Yeah, it's not a big deal, but I remember that had been bothering me the whole series. Just like, why did they spend so much time on her wanting them executed and like,
well,
But whatever.
to be fair, I kind of thought that there was going to be some big, you know, backstab followed
Right.
by a backstab of a backstab followed by like a quintuple backstab
Yeah,
type
like
of
all of a
moment.
sudden everybody's in a circle with stabbing each other, and you're like, "Oh no, you got me. We're all
Yeah,
dead."
but it didn't happen. So
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm just
Yeah, it's not a big deal. Soul, let's go to you. What character do you wanna that we have to get to?
you better pick my favorite. I'm going to be very mad at you.
Hey, no, he can pick
No, let's
whoever
let's do
his
let's
favorite.
do Veridus
Oh yes, now we're
and get him
talking.
out of the way. Yeah, because
Reach.
that's Era's favorite right there. I knew it.
This is going to be a
Um.
spicy conversation.
Okay, so first off, defied my expectations because I thought he was stupider than I thought he was
Oh,
stupider than he was going to be. He did actually realize how stupid he was. There was that self-realization, which was interesting and, much more realistic to have somebody be like, wow, I was totally loyal and I should not have been. And I spent years doing the wrong thing. And look at all the terrible things I've done. So he did have that moment. Um, I think it's probably really just because he's got a cool giant buddy, Alcyon, that's been good the whole time, doing what he can. And I don't know. What do you guys think about Veridus? I have conflicted feelings.
listen, me and Era, I think are going to be on whatever. Or it's going to be opposite sides. So whoever wants to start,
Well, I want to start. I want to start Era. I did.
yeah.
I did pick his favorite character for a reason. So
I've never met a character who had so much effing plot armor than
but
Veridus.
yeah, that's fair.
Hi, hi, yes, I, Veridus, Nether's first sword, who murdered children and all of your friends and all of your family. I'm down the good guy side. Oh, okay, yeah, that sounds good. Yeah, you're a good guy now. That's it. That's all he had to do. I'm a good guy now. Oh yeah, I know. We agree. You're a good guy. Whatever. I mean, there was nothing he had to do besides go. I'm a good guy. All right. Yeah. Fine. All right. Let's go. And they trusted him completely. They let him do whatever the hell he wanted. They had a couple moments where he kind of held his shield wall. He showed his fortitude in battle. But that was kind of almost as an aside, I felt, as to what was going on with the true main character, McKinn. Anyways, we'll get back to him later. So then Veritas kills Nether. Felt nothing about it. I literally felt nothing
Yeah,
about
I
it.
couldn't care less.
I'm like, I don't care. Okay, fine, Nether, you died in an unmarked grave. Congratulations. Doesn't matter. Veritas gets the girl at the end and
Didn't like that either.
gets Corbin's eternal gratitude and approval. I mean, I don't understand Veritas. Oh, and by the way, and all of Veritas's family that's remaining dies off camera.
Wow.
Like
So close.
literally, it's a litany of people who died, who so and 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 so died. Which, you know what, I get in the context of war, people die randomly, but that's the extent of like what we get. So basically, Veritas is alone because all the rest of his family's dead. Either
Yeah, but
he
he
kills,
got a girl. That's why.
but he got the girl.
No.
Yep.
So
Yeah.
so anyways, end of the day, his utility as a POV was to show from a quote good guy perspective, end quote, what was going on in the enemy camp. What was Nether doing? What was Caldas doing, etc.
What do you
I
think, Yeti? Because I feel
would
like
Yeah.
you got a
I
couple
would have
things.
Let
I
him
would
get
have
it out.
vastly preferred for Veritas to have killed Nether and become the Black Sun himself.
Yeah, that'd have been a
That would
cool
have been
twist. Yeah.
that would have been a more that would have been consistent with the storyline. And
I'd
I
be
would
fine with
have
that too. Yeah.
bought that. But anyways, go ahead.
I have no argument against that if they took that way.
Tell me,
Hey, what?
tell me how awesome Veritas the idiot is.
Well, I will say this. Out of all the characters I've read in my many years of fantasy reading, Veritas might have been the dumbest person I've ever read. I'm not. That's not hyperbole. Like I've never been more frustrated with the character, and yet,
Oh no, I stabbed my father.
and yet, I came away finishing this book as, and I'm not joking, that he might be my favorite character in this book. And I think he had the best moments in this book. And what I think Gwynne was going for, and I'm fine with pushback because I don't know if he totally pulled it off. I think what he was going for is to show how sad it is and just how trapped someone can feel when there's so much in their beliefs in something, whatever that may be, whether it's a false loyalty, whether it's politically, whatever, religiously, when they're so in their belief. And yes, should he have figured out he was working for the bad guys way before? 100%. I'll never forget that conversation in the third book with like McKinn and Fidelay at that trial thing. That was infuriating. But the point is, he did eventually figure it out. And the conversation he had with Nether in that last showdown was, I think, probably one of the best things that Gwynne has ever written. When he's with Corbin and he's talking to Nether about how, it's not too late to switch sides, to do what is right. And he did it. And, people will forgive you. And I love that moment where he says, Corbin's the bright star. He will allow you to right your wrongs. And we see Nether, I guess speaks more than Nether, but we see Nether just like a switch flips and jealousy pings on. And he's like, how could this guy be so, we were blood brothers and he's the bright star. He's siding with him over this. And I love the use of Veritas, how it just shows how quick the difference between him and Nether is. Nether is, Soul said it last episode. He's a coward. I mean, Nether said it this episode when his POV. He's a coward. He's greedy. He's full of jealousy. And only through Veritas do we see that unlocked with him. And I couldn't help but root for Veritas after this. I felt bad for him. And I feel like an idiot and a sap because of it. But his moments, I won't say I felt too much when Nether was killed, but what I did feel, it was one of the more awesome moments in the book was when Alcyon comes to rescue him when he's fighting Nether.
Yes,
And
that
show
yeah.
like that moment is incredible. And their bond, when you see a true friendship, when the only person he seeks out after the battle is Alcyon in the tent. And they
Yeah.
have that beautiful conversation where Alcyon just tells him, let it go. Let that burden of Nether go. Like, it's so obvious to Alcyon. It's so obvious to Era and Soul that, dude, let it go. This guy's been evil for a long time. That's on him. That's not on you. And I thought that was such a powerful. Man, I wish I could have those conversations with dozens of people in my life. Like, dude, let it go. Your life is not all this one thing that's making you boiled up and guilty or angry. And so I really connected with that storyline. So that's my half-winded response to Veritas. I'm just speaking my truth. I didn't expect to feel this way, and that's just it.
Okay.
I will agree with you. Alcyon is a great character. I enjoy everything you said about Alcyon, what Alcyon did or said. I agree with you. Alcyon was I thought Alcyon was a great character. I think I said it back in book 1. Like, Alcyon was a fascinating character, always has been. So I completely agree with you regarding Alcyon.
I think he should get some credit because Alcyon's great because of the dynamic he has with Veritas. And I even said that in the first book. I was like, hey, these two having a bond was good. It's not just Alcyon. I mean, it's those two together, I think really worked.
Everybody inexplicably likes Veritas. Everybody likes Veritas. You know what? And look, we all know this person, whether it's the star quarterback in high school who's kind of a blithering idiot but a great athlete, or the person in it's your business or your company who they somehow succeed despite having no skills or qualifications whatsoever. I mean, there's always that person, whoever it may be, and they all have this quality of being likable without having any noticeable skills or qualities whatsoever. And that's who Veritas reminds me of.
Yeah, that's fair. I'm not. I don't think he was the best written character, and plot armor definitely in this book. But I wasn't expecting to root, like we were talking all through the series, when he eventually switched sides, which we knew was happening.
Yeah.
I was ready to just be like, oh, come on, dude, like. But I was rooting for it at the end. Like when he goes with Corbin and them at the end. When I texted you guys and I said I was so excited to see what's next for these people. He was the number one on my mind because, as Era said, he has no family, he has no responsibility. What was he going to do with his life? He doesn't know anything, and that's an interesting thing for me.
I would have vastly preferred if the story had Veritas is gonna he's gonna try to redeem himself and go after Nether or whatever, and Corbin and company doesn't trust him and will not associate with him, and Nether, of course, is going against him, so he has to get together whatever Eagle Guard remain loyal to him, and he kind of forms his own faction, and he does it himself, having to evade Corbin and all that. My biggest issue with Veritas in this book is that he was completely and almost with not that much suspicion, just accepted completely into Corbin's group,
Yeah,
and that irritated me immensely.
They kind of, yeah. Gwynne had like Brenna say something like, shut up, all you. Yeah. He kind of.
They mention it between that and also Fidel being like, "Oh, I trust him. He's obviously," and they're like, "Okay."
You know what I will say though, which I really wanted, and I wish they would have. I wish he would have attacked this more. So again, that conversation between Nether and Veritas, again, one of my favorite parts of the book. But Veritas kind of whispers to him when he sees he's lost. He's like, dude, you killed your own father. He's like, you killed your own father.
Yeah, you
I
can
don't
see
know
how
how
that's not right, and you're like, yeah.
but I wish Nether would have said to him, so did you. And I
I was
wish,
waiting for that line.
well, that would have been
Yeah.
more interesting. He needed, I wish there's more grappling with the fact of what he did, where I wish he would have said, you're right, and I am a bad person. He's like, what I've done is wrong, and I'm not saying I'm a good person. I'm just trying to right whatever wrong I can, and I know that never will be able to. I wish they had that kind of. That's what was missing for me in that Veritas storyline.
If you go back to the original prophecy, Veritas meets the qualifications of the prophecy except for being a Drake writer. No,
Oh, here
seriously.
we go.
No,
Yeah.
except for writing a Drog or Drake or whatever it is.
Yeah.
he meets the qualifications. Seriously.
Oh, we talked
Mhm.
about this. Like 5 people meet this
Yeah.
qualification.
Well,
Well,
Jail,
most
but
prison.
prophecies that this is Wheel of Time all over again.
A lot of people
I,
killing their parents.
I was just trying to piggyback off of what you're saying of Veritas, you're not that much different than Nether.
I wish they would have confronted that and him
Right.
admit that and say, "Hey, you're right, but I know now I'm on the right side or doing what's right." But they never did. He just kind of judged Nathair for it and saying, "Dude, what's wrong with you?" So that was one moment where I was like, "Dude, Nathair, call him out. Be like, you did too." I mean, you could say it's an accident, but he'd never be in that position if you weren't on the right side. So that's all I got for
So
Veritas.
so sorry we went on and on. What do you have to say?
He let us
No,
battle like two
I like
kaijus.
Yeti's take on this.
Oh,
Ah, I still just don't like him that much. I don't like him that much. It's
fair.
just he wasn't somebody that I could relate to, because it was more about this is a guy who's starting his morality growth journey, just like Camlin did. Except Camlin, we got 4 books of that, and we're getting on the very end of the journey in this finale, and we're getting Veritas being like, "I'm here, I'm gonna do it," and you're like, "All right, cool." You really should have done this a lot earlier, and we wouldn't have all these issues right now. But
Right.
it's different stages of that journey is what I felt like that was.
Yeah. And again, I didn't want him redeemed because I think I'm clear. I don't think he is redeemable, but I just the moments he had in this book I thought were some of the most riveting. And thinking about it, I wish he went further. Gwynne did with calling Veritas out on just being clear that like you're not being redeemed, even though you're on the right side. You're still not much different, as Era said, than Nathair. But those conversations to me were kind of the most. And then seeing true friendship with Alcyon, saying, "You guys say he got the girl." I'm like, whatever, who cares? That part, I don't care about that part. But when he was at the bedside with Alcyon's like, "Hey, we're gonna be friends for life. I know that." I was like, "That's the good stuff right there." I was like, "You better." Like Alcyon sees that there's good in Veritas, even if all 3 of us do not. Hey, let's leave the floor to Era. You want to go to your? Let's talk about your boy.
Yeah, it's your turn.
Oh, that's right.
Yeah, it's
Well,
your turn.
oh, yeah, sorry. The host forgot. Well, then I'll bring him up. Let's get into McKinn.
Yeah,
And
it's not Corbin.
no, which is crazy that we haven't talked about Corbin and yet.
Let's get in. No, let's get into McKinn. We can save
Now
Corbin.
we're gonna talk about the true hero of the 4 books.
Okay, yeah.
Well, we
Yeah.
can talk about McKinn, and then after this, we can talk about Corbin and really the end of the book,
Yeah.
because he is such a big part, and there's a lot that happens there. So, man, McKinn, it's hard not to talk about McKinn and not talk about Lycos and Fidel.
Yeah, they're
And
intertwined. You have to.
I think I know what you're gonna say, and I'm going to agree with you ahead of time
Now
because
you have free pass. Say whatever you want, Yeti. Anything that comes to mind.
you're getting ready to dump all over the whole like this Fidel thing, and I'm going to agree with you 100%. Go ahead.
I thought, one, I think it's wholly unnecessary. When you're talking about plots that could have been cut, I think that could have been cut. First of all, if you think about it, that whole storyline doesn't affect the greater story at all, which I don't really care that much. But I mean, literally, the world would have been saved or whatever without all them. The biggest thing to me is that Fidel just felt like so much of a plot device for McKinn. And she made so many dumbest decisions. Like I said, again, going after Nathair and getting recaptured. Like Soul's talking about the plot. He just reused the same plot again. Plot point that she gets captured and McKinn has to go save her. And her death, where she just jumps to her death, was just so. I really can't even explain how anticlimactic and just betrayed I felt. That I was like, why was this character written? Honestly, I feel like you could have done this whole thing. I know I said it before, but with Ogle, his sword brother, who I felt he had a much better bond with, in the pits, and that could have led to his whole wanting revenge on Lycos because this dude turned his sword brother into a slave, and you could have had the whole exact thing. I guess you could argue because he was on the Bridge of Swords, and he's coming back for love and to revenge, but I don't know. That never, as much as McKinn did work for me, and I loved that journey he went on of revenge, like Era said, that Viking revenge quest. I could not get down with Fidel, and I could not care less about that romantic relationship. Like I was rooting more for Veridis and Kerwin, and I didn't like that one either. So it was I don't want to get too much in hyperbole, but I'd be curious on other people's thoughts on Fideli's storyline because I thought that was like garbage, especially with the rape
So
thrown in there. I don't know. It
Yeah,
was,
I think Arrow will agree with me. This was another issue of the writing, not just the plot, but he made the character Fidel for the basically the first two books, and after that, he had no idea what he was going to do with it because now this politically important figure, romantically involved, possibly what's going on, and then this is what it ended up doing and reusing that stuff until he could prolong it until the final battle, which I think he would do better in his next series for something like this. But I think this is what happens when he had a bunch of cards out and he's like, all right, I made this hand, but what am I doing with it after a certain number of times? And he's like, okay, that's what it was. He just fumbled this one. And Mackin was so important. So
real quick before Era jumps in, can you imagine, honest to God, can you imagine if you're Nether's dad? You're like, oh man, my son killed me. This is the worst way to go. But at least I'm in heaven or whatever. And I'm gonna meet my wife when she comes. And this woman just he sees her show up and he's like, hey, what's up? And she's like, ugh, got bad news for you. Waiting for someone else. He's like, what? I've been dead a year. What the? If
saying,
that.
what's going on? There's a war going on. You're not.
Unbelievable. She just falls in love for this pit fight. I don't know. I know it's ridiculous, but I couldn't stop thinking about Nether's dad. I'm like, dude, he must be till death do us part for sure. Anyway, go ahead, Arrow.
Yeah, murdered by his son, left by his wife.
It's brutal.
well, political marriage versus true love marriage. But anyways,
Yeah, of course.
I'm not going to disagree with anything you guys have to say about the Lycos Fidel dynamic. I too was, I don't want to say repulsed because I think that's too strong, but turned off, uninterested. There's a large part of me that felt like, oh, Gwynne wants her to die a certain way, so I'm going to manufacture the scene so she can die a certain way
Sure.
to trigger McKinn. That's kind of how it felt like to me.
But that's the point. That she was only just a device to
Right.
have an emotional.
Yeah.
I agree. I to me, and I think on a do-over, you could achieve the same effect and do everything else if Lycos, for example, was more how he was in the first couple books, which is cold-blooded, and he simply assassinated Fidel.
Yeah, that would have been brutal. Yeah.
That would have been he could have assassinated her in all kinds of brutal ways. Make sure that when you assassinate her, that McKinn sees it happen or whatever, right? So those other ways that could have been effectuated doesn't change the fact that her death was a necessary part of McKinn's story, and that to me was my problem with Fidel, is that she was an accessory to McKinn's story and she didn't have a story on her own. That was my problem with her.
And an accessory to Lyco's story. I mean, a
Correct.
tool to make him more hateable.
Yeah.
Correct.
By raping her, by capturing all that stuff is just
right. Regarding McKinn himself, I personally it was probably my favorite storyline of the whole thing. It was unexpected, like to go from being Robin to becoming Batman. I loved it. I loved seeing his journey, and so unfortunately for the whole Nordic revenge story, he had a reason to live until he didn't. Well, so he lost his reason to live, and that's how he ended up then becoming a slave and then a pit fighter and all that stuff. And then he found a reason to live again, which was Fidel. And then once he no longer had the reason to live, I mean, at that point, okay, people are dying.
Yeah.
Like it was just like, did you guys see that the Dungeons and Dragons movie this past year?
It's awesome.
Not yet, but I have seen the Northmen, so I know how.
Well,
I know how it goes for revenge.
McKinn's story, he had to lose his reason to live to complete his arc. And he completed his arc by giving to hear what he didn't have. He saved his ward so his ward could live.
Great scene.
So
So
Yeah.
good.
and to me that was he had to like McKinn had to die.
Oh yeah.
He
There was
is
no way he
is
was living.
right.
Yeah.
So the
It was
way
just how
he
he was
died
going out. Yeah.
so the way he died was perfect. Because yeah, so he died killing a dog single handedly, which was awesome. But he did it to save Halen
Hmm.
because his last thought was, I can't let this happen, right? So
He
it's
fulfilled
just
one last oath. I mean,
right.
what are we
So
talking about? Failure was a big part of his
right
arc.
in his mind, he felt like at the end, he's like, at least I did one good thing, right? No, I mean, he was never a failure. That's the whole
Right.
point. He was never a failure, but that's what motivated him was the
Mhm.
fact that he felt like he failed. So there's a lot we can go into about that, but all those little meanings about it, just for McKinn and kind of his own personal journey and his growth or his however you want to view growth, his change throughout the books was to me one of the most compelling parts of the series.
Yeah, all that talk I said about Fidel and whatever doesn't change the fact that McKinn's probably like the most interesting character in this book. I mean, even with all that. And that scene right before he's putting a knife to his wrist once he kills Lycos and he's, just once says this job here is done essentially. He's gonna slit his wrist and the blood's kind of bubbling and he hears the throng of battle and he kind of perks up and he says, well, think I've got some fight in me left, and sees Halen being chased by the drag. That's like an all time like I was like, let's go, baby. I know you're gonna get just demolished eventually, but I was like, you're gonna be like a Tasmanian devil in the middle of this fight, and that was like I said, those moments that Gwynne does with emotion and adrenaline, it's he's so skilled at that, and that's when I was like, this book is taking another level.
And I'm gonna toss this back to Soul in a second. So one of the things that they do in more modern books and Wrath achieves that effect when McKinn takes on the drake, the way it was described in the book, I could see it in my mind and go, damn, I would love to see that on screen. I mean, seriously, it's like I want to see that on screen. That was like a really cool scene. Okay, so go ahead.
No, let's be honest. McKinn was all right.
Whoa,
Yeah. Now
hot
he had
take.
a great ending, but the fact that they reused the plot lines again for Fidel and Lycos really irritated me. So for 65% of the book, I didn't enjoy McKinn. It was okay. I mean, I got it. I were like, well, but we're doing the exact same thing again.
Right.
And that did annoy me. The conclusion, still incredibly satisfying, but I didn't feel like we needed a repeat. And that did annoy me. So that detracted. That's why McKinn is definitely not my favorite for this book or
I
the
think he
series.
I think he just had two sequences that were like all time in the series. One where he's chasing down jail in the beginning. I mean, they got that right over with. They're like, this dude is he
Yeah,
can smell his prey. And the when he
that was
cries
incredible.
and when he
Yeah,
cries afterwards, I was like, yeah, I mean, I get you, brother. I hear you.
yeah.
And then, like you said, that final one, and it
Hmm.
just, I agree with you totally. I total percent about them reusing that plot line. It's infuriating. But I can, as a reader, and this is just me, I always forgive these flaws when they can recover with moments that are like just so sky high. Like when he's dying and he
Yeah,
sees Tahir and Halen in front of him, but Halen looks so much like Castell, and he's like Castell. I mean that's beautiful stuff. I almost forgot
that was
Halen's
cool.
related to him.
Yeah. No, but from jail dying all the way
Yeah.
to Fidel dying to where he loses the purpose kind of thing. Or sorry, yeah, almost basically to Lycos because Fidel, like you said, you knew Fidel was going to die. All the way from those two sections, that's what irritates me because, like you said, jail, great scene because it was satisfying. It was a part of his fulfilling that oath, and then fulfilling the oath of killing Lycos. But it just keeps coming back to me as more plot lines that like could it tighten that up Couldn't just tighten it up.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I have no defense of that. I really thought that was like when she got captured again. I was like, you got to be kidding me. I was like, this is ridiculous.
Oh, and when he got captured again, and then he came, I was like, oh, okay, so we're gonna capture him again. And he's like, oh, okay, now he's free again, and now we're gonna capture and it's Fidelity. I'm like, okay, there we go. All right, yeah, it was just like hot potato.
Well, so I'm McKinn getting captured. I'll defend that part a little bit because let me explain. Veritas, I'm going to go back to Veritas. Veritas
Oh yeah.
has to end up coming together with Corbin's team.
Mm-hmm.
McKinn was perpendicular to them.
Okay.
He met them briefly. That was at the battle with Jael, and then
Yeah.
he's like, "Good luck at my first. I'm doing my own thing."
Yeah.
Right? He couldn't care less, and that was very clear throughout the entire series. He had his own motivations. If you can get him to kind of be interested with what he wanted to do, great. If not, well, whatever. I love that, and honestly, I wish some of that energy had been put into Veritas.
Hmm.
To be honest, so I actually like the fact that his story didn't coincide with everybody else's, and as you notice throughout the series, more and more it's like, oh crap, we captured McKinn. What did we get ourselves into? Um, okay, first we're gonna hold him with like a couple people. Well, then we're gonna put him in chains, and oh, this time we're gonna like guard him with like our best soldiers. It becomes clear by the end of the book that there's very few people that can actually fight the way McKinn can, and that's basically because he doesn't care about living.
Right.
You know, um, and just small. This is a small point, and this is more of a personal thing. And I think I may have mentioned it in one of the other podcasts, but I feel like it's worth mentioning again. Um, so Gwen read or respected or knew David Gemmell. I would bet anything if we were to ask him that McKinn was partly an homage to a character that David Gemmell wrote called Waylander, because I swear McKinn is another version of this Waylander character that David Gemmell created. And it was eerie kind of reading him kind of going, it's kind of like Waylander. Kind of like, just kind of, yeah. Anyways, if you guys want to read more about Waylander, go read those stories. I won't talk about it anymore.
Okay.
Hey, when we get Gwynne on the pod, you can ask him.
Yeah. List of questions. No, I'm good on McKinn. Like I said, satisfying ending, and honestly, satisfying beginning as well to the story. Just that middle plot lines were kind of lagging for me.
Yeah. I mean, I agree, but I don't know. He was just such a dynamic read that it didn't totally bother me. And I just love revenge stories. So either way, but I did get that feeling where it's like, oh boy, this.
Well, my thing was Lycos got him, right? And we know Lycos isn't, well, I mean, he's a blithering idiot again, but he should be smart enough to be like, all right, I'm obviously scared of this guy, I'm terrified of this guy. I have him again. What do we do? Just kill him. Just kill him. Easy. Just kill him. Because you're obviously terrified of him. So that was just the plot armor of that. I was like, all right, if you're going to get captured again, then McKinn's going to die. If he's not going to get captured. That's why yeah.
Gwen's made it clear, this has been a consistent theme. Lycos is a victim of his own desires.
Yeah.
He desires alcohol and
he'd rather torture McKinn and break him than kill him, because that's just who he is. Like, we can disagree with it. We could say the more practical thing is to do that, and I'm not saying you're wrong.
Oh no, I know.
I mean, he's Lycos' flaw, or the reason he's a villain, is because he is a slave to his own desires.
I guess I was sick of seeing the same exact thing for Lycos. I mean, we get tons of growth for all of the protagonist characters, but these villains, this dude didn't learn at all in 4 books.
Lycos clearly devolved throughout the series.
Yeah.
And there was an explanation given, I believe, in book 2, where it was Calidus's kind of like, having to hear Azeroth's voice, and kind of so he drowned himself in alcohol and stuff. So I'm not disagreeing with you. I agree. Lycos did devolve. And I guess what I'm not sure about, because it was never made explicitly clear, was that intended or not?
Yeah, I guess that's what it is. And when you're reading it, you don't know because of the reuse of the storyline. Is it clear? Is that why? Is it his fall from grace with Calidus? What is his reasoning? I don't know. Especially since we have him as a POV, I felt like we definitely didn't get that motivation for like why he's not improving, even in his villainy.
All right. We got to
Sorry,
move
I
on.
got no light. We can move on. I feel like that's like a dead end kind of topic, anyways.
Let's finish with a bang. Let's finish with Corbin and
Yeah.
the end with the Ben Alim and Azeroth popping up. Were you guys? I'm trying to think where to start with Corbin.
Corbin didn't actually kill anybody. He was kind of a wuss in this book.
Well, that's true.
What?
He
He didn't actually.
didn't with
He
Calidus. He didn't technically. He sent him
Well,
back
he
to the Shadow Realm.
first off,
he
he's in the
he didn't do
camp.
it.
He's in the camp, and he wasn't killing people, but he was
Wait.
being his normal Corby self, and like knocking people out and giants, and winning people over to his side,
I thought.
showing
I'm just
mad
saying, on a
skills.
level one, on a punching level,
hmm.
he was the most successful one of the bunch. That's all I'm saying.
I will
Okay.
say the moment Gar taught him that lesson that you have to take a wound to give a wound, I knew that was going to come up at the end. I was like,
Another Wheel of Time thing.
I was like,
Okay.
that's.
Yeah.
I was like, that's coming up later in the book. I mean, that's
Yeah, I
just
think we all mentioned that in the group chat. We're like, yep, here we go.
that's gonna be
Yeah.
used. I get Corbin. I think he was overall. I think he was a good anchor for this series. I mean, the story revolves around Corbin,
Yeah,
and
I agree.
as far as farm boys go who turned into the chosen ones, I think he carried the story well. And he never really became annoying to me. This last fight, when he's fighting Azeroth and Calidus, I did get a little emotional. I mean, the Gar death was, probably expected, but I still thought it was kind of moving, and I particularly liked that he goes back into the Shadow Realm to take care of Calidus. Although I don't, that's a nitpick for me. Can bring up later about the Shadow Realm, but that he was so focused on finishing this because of what they done to his mom and dad. But yeah, just Soul, the end of the book in general with Corbin. Did any favorite parts or moments?
I mean, I like all of that. It's the classic satisfying ending to a hero's journey. He nearly dies, he saves the world, he lives happily ever after, gets the girl, mentor wait, Guard died. Um but just one of those things where like Guard didn't really affect me too much because that was one of the ones where like we knew it was probably coming, and I did feel bad because of how much page time we had, but not really with Gar, except
Right.
for him rescuing in the beginning. I wanted more Corbin and Gar like them together because we really haven't had that for like 2 books, honestly.
Fair.
Um, but that's just because it's an epic fantasy series and that's what it is. But no, Corbin was great. I just like it. This is where we start from Malice and we get to Corbin at the end. All that journey in between. That's what I'm here for. That's why I like epic fantasies.
Era, any specific point in that battle or Corbin itself that really stood out to you? I actually do have one
Yes,
now that I think of it.
yes, he stayed true to who he was, and I mean it in this fashion. His flaws, his character flaws, remain in book 4. He's still a stubborn SOB.
Yeah.
He doesn't really change in that. He's stubborn to a fault. He's loyal to a fault, which is both the reason why people are attracted to him as a leader and why they follow him. And it's also why he gets himself into trouble. That doesn't change. And I like that because, and you say happily ever after, not so much. He's like, I'm keeping my eyes on you, Benelim, and I'm going to go off and I'm going to create my own little order because I don't trust you guys. And it's like I'm sitting here going, yeah, no, he grew up, sure, but he didn't become this paragon of virtue. He didn't become a messiah, right? And I like that because Corbin remained human, and that's what I liked.
He never wanted to, though. So that's why, to me, like, it felt like it's still a happy ever after because he's doing his thing, what he wants to do with his girl and his remaining friends. And that's why he was like, all right, to me, that's his happily ever afters because he didn't go and do like, oh, we want you to do this and help us with this. Like, no, no, no. I'm going to do what I want to do. And that's that. And that's where I like that. So I agree with you, but I just want to make that clear. I didn't think it was like the happy ever after where you rise off in the sunset kind of thing.
I like that point that Era made that he never really forgave Mike Hall for that kind of betrayal. And that shows in the Benelim scene where he's just that trust and that stubbornness of his where he's just like, nah, I'm not gonna do what you guys say. I'll do it my way. But you guys can't be trusted. I've dealt it. And he's like, I appreciate what Michael did to come back. But he just that, like you said, it always just lingered with him where he always would bring it up. He's like, yeah, this dude lied to me. I'm not over that. And you're right. I like that about him where he was just still sticking to that. Cause it'd feel fake if he just believed the Benelim. Like, yeah, these guys are good. These guys are cool.
And because, so here's the thing, like, if it was any other character but Corbin that told the people, look, the Benelim lied to us, I think there would have been like legitimately like the basis of your entire religion is based on a lie, and I can prove it to you. Most people would have they'd have a meltdown, right?
Yeah.
Their entire
the war,
society.
everything we've been doing. Oh no.
The Jihar particularly dedicated their lives to
Exactly.
it.
Oh yeah.
But the genius of Gwynne's writing was that Corbin was that person that they were waiting for, even though what they were waiting for wasn't real. Corbin was real, and Corbin embodied everything that they believed in. So it didn't matter that the prophecy was real or not real, because for all intents and purposes, Corbin was who they were expecting. And I love that. I mean, I love that because it's like, look, that's probably what Gwen's saying is, look, fine, you don't have what you think you have. You still have each other, and that's enough. And I love that message.
My 3 favorite Corbin scenes. One, I think, was last book where they all go around him and give him his torque or whatever and say, this is why we follow you, not because you're the bright star or whatever.
A little
Second
sappy,
favorite.
but still good. Yeah.
Wow, I love the sap. The second one kind of mirrors that same one where he says, hey, I'm not the bright star. And if you guys, we want to do this or whatever. And they say pretty much the same thing, but saying, we're following you because of the deeds you did and the things that you stand for, not because you are or aren't. And the third scene isn't even of his point of view. Of course, I'm going to bring him up again, but it's when Veritas is in the hospice and he sees Corbin and he's surrounded by all the people who love him. And he says that right there is the distinct difference between Nethair and Corbin. He's like, who's at Nethair's grave? No one. Me. And he's like, who's with Corbin? All the people who loved him, and not out of loyalty, but out of love and friendship. And I think Corbin really embodied that, and Gwynne did a good job with that character doing that. It always felt kind of true. It didn't kind of feel too much like just a parody of 80s or 70s, 90s farm boys.
It didn't feel forced.
Yeah, that's a better way to put it.
Yeah.
It all felt natural every time those moments come up and what he did.
Well, he does a good job. Like, I love with his friends Dath and Farrell and stuff like that, where they're still teenagers and they still act like it.
They became Merry and
they're
Pippin in
goofy.
this book. Sorry.
They
Dath
did.
and Farrell.
Yeah, I know they did, but the core of their relationship was still there, which I did enjoy. I did want, I wanted more fleshed out for them, because then all of a sudden they're like, "Oh, we did this because we're into that." I'm like, "Oh, well, we've gotten what, a paragraph of this guy the whole time or something like that, like this whole book." But from where we started to where they ended, it was good stuff. It did what it needed to do.
I thought it was interesting that the Benelim actually embodied what in traditional Jewish, like how Judaism interprets like angels or slash messengers, the Ben Elohim, as they're creatures born of duty. They don't actually have like emotions the way we have emotions. And I thought that was actually well represented in the book, in
Yeah,
the
their
series.
faces and yeah.
Yeah, because the only one who exhibited any emotions as we would understand it was Michael. And that's because he lived with humans for so long, he kind of adopted some of our habits.
Yep.
If you recall, the rest of them, they were like perfectly, yes, so what, you lied to the humans? Who cares? Like, our goal is to get rid of the Kedoshim or whatever. So
Yeah.
I just thought I wanted to point that out. That was interesting.
You brought it up. I mean, I was going to bring it up. I think what really separated Gwynne in this section for me, the end and everything, was just um, how he used the Ben Elim and Kadashim in just a historical sense in his world, and that they're now part of this world, and the idea that they're not. I feel like in an older book they would just be the good. They were the saviors. They unlocked them and they saved everyone at the end, and
Yeah.
it's so more ambiguous. And like you said, they're not human. I mean, when they're talking to Corbin at the end, their faces are flat. There's no emotion, and they kind of just shrug off when he declines them and flies away. But they're not. The goals are not aligned, and the ideas that he's setting, what that means for the world going forward, I thought that really separated him from standard fantasy books, and that was his modern twist on it.
I agree with you. And we didn't talk about his time with the Jotun or the Jotun.
That was great. Yes,
Yeah.
I
Bear
actually did like
giants.
that.
Mhm.
I like that because
That was fun. It was cool.
that
Well,
yeah,
it's more Corbin personality of like winning people over.
or winning the right enough of the right people over.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
so that and what I liked is he had gotten so good with a sword or with his weapons that even the giants were like, "Crap, this guy is pretty much a." I mean, like, we'll keep him in captivity, but crap, don't give him an actual weapon because he will
Yeah.
mess us
You give him a
up.
piece of metal and it's close enough to a sword to whoop your butt. Yeah.
That was, and just a good fleshing out of the world. Like I thought that really opened up the giants, just seeing how they have different clans and different ideas and customs and rules that they follow, and that was interesting. And then how there's even in between clans they have uprisings.
That's true. And the other thing I do like that Gwyn did, and this is a very difficult thing to do. He did set up the story for future stories without it being, oh my goodness, here's your future story.
Yeah.
It's just, I've built my world up. I've given you a whole bunch of ways I can go with my story. And I've told this story.
Yeah, I'm excited to see what makes it into the next story and what little tidbits and Easter eggs we can find that maybe we wouldn't have caught if we hadn't read this first series.
Yeah, it wasn't like you said, it wasn't set up for like necessarily sequel stuff, but it was just such interesting writing that he leaves that as a doorstop for these Ben Elim that like, hey, you have to live in a society. I didn't need to read more after this, but I'm saying the idea that I'm left with, it's not this like you say. I mean, it was a happy ending to an extent. Like people, the good side won, but there's things to think about afterwards that he's clearly writing there. Is like, hey, these people are inhabiting the earth. Veridus says like, oh, or not Veridus, our fan favorite with the bow and arrow. He even says like, this is going to take some getting used to seeing these guys flying around. There's this lingering thought about that.
You're absolutely right. He could never have revisited this world, and those could have left those threads hanging, but they weren't really hanging. They were just kind of, all
And
right,
it's just the fact that this is a
yeah.
different world.
Or he could go write other stuff, then come back to this world later. I mean, it's there if he wants to write more about it, which
Yeah.
he did, but he didn't have to. And it's just, he wrapped up the books well.
Thoughts on Azeroth and Calidus? I guess there are big villains, but really Calidus is our big villain. Let's be quite honest with you. I liked his end. Well, frankly, all their ends. I like, if we want to get into it, I like Lycos getting destroyed by ants at the end. I think there was no question that he purposely wrote it where it said the ants were attacking his nether regions. But even Calidus, kind of his soul being sucked into that lake person's region, the lake guy, I thought was satisfying in a sense. Didn't make sense to me at all, but it was satisfying.
My only question is, so Azeroth was encased in the star metal.
Yes, so cool.
He's
So-
coming back.
Is he dead? Is he dead, or is he just
No,
encased in metal?
they're
No,
both
he's-
living, both of them.
That's got to be a plot point for a next book. I haven't read any further, but there's no way he's not getting back at Chekhov's frozen.
Yeah,
He's the
I
guy.
mean they're encased in metal and still living, both of them. And I did like that it was like the literal Azeroth, the demon, basically God, versus the second in command, Michael, and then the same with like how it was always like they're always playing up in
Yeah,
their field.
interesting. Elion never showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Still
I like
sleeping.
that.
Yeah,
I like that.
it was a
Uh,
choice.
I hope in the future stories, Elion never does show up.
I hope so too, because it's always more intriguing in a story to have. You don't want a level playing field. You want to feel the stress, the pain of having to play, below, or sorry, play against something that's stronger than you or whatever you're trying to do. When you have competition that's just enough to put you down, that's what you need. It's more intriguing, more fun to read about.
All right, let's do nitpicks and then final thoughts. Anything else we want to get? I just have a few nitpicks, if you don't mind.
Go ahead. I'm out of nitpicks. Actually, I feel like we've hit all of mine. So go ahead.
Era brought this up in a previous episode. How does Corbin go to the Shadow Realm? Why? How can he just go there anytime? My call obviously doesn't bring him all the time because my call wasn't around. So how can he just go?
Here's my theory.
willy-nilly?
And the prophecy's a lie, so he's not
Right.
actually the chosen one, right?
He's
So-
not a chosen one. Why is he
But-
the only one?
But him and Suwen, his sister, can both do the earth power magic.
Is that linked to that? It wasn't made clear. I don't.
I mean, it was not made clear, but my theory was that because Corbin had started learning it with Brina, and she's like, no, we're going to shelve this because earth magic too powerful, and we need to save this for your sister, and you got to be a sword boy.
Yeah, definitely dropped that storyline for him.
And then from then on, he never does any more earth power, and that's when he can start going into the other realm.
Yeah,
Before he ever learned Earth power, he could see chains around Nether and like connections between him and Nether.
It's all part of the earth power era. You gotta embrace the theory there, sir.
It's fine. It's a plot
This
hole.
is magic. Yeah, it's fine.
This
This is
makes-
magic in a soft magic system.
Makes no sense. I'm fine with it, but I was just thinking the whole
Yeah.
time, like, how can you just? Anyway, second
I agree.
one, Calidus. This dude's a genius, right? I mean, he kind of fumbled the bag. He's like the Sixers in the fourth quarter. He totally fumbled it. But what? How did he not know when he gets this cauldron open and opens this portal? He didn't know Ben Alim are going to come shooting out. How does he not prepare for that? He's like shocked when they come shoot. Like Corbin didn't do anything different. They're like, "Hey, that thing's open."
Well, in semi-defense of him, he presumed a certain level of competence for his other Kadoshim.
It's true.
So
yes,
And he also,
And that-
this is the only way to get his god out. So,
yeah. Well, wouldn't
regardless of the Benelem,
they say like, "Hey, I'm going to open this thing. I'm going to leave. Like, I need 100 of you guys to just cover this entrance and take out all these dudes." I mean, they're going to come. I mean,
he was fighting a big war and a final battle there.
he was
but-
at Drassel for the whole book.
I know.
He was too
but-
scared to leave his home. I'm telling you, it was a choke
Yeah.
job. He was. I couldn't believe it. I was like, man, this
Okay.
guy, he's playing
You
scared.
raised some good points.
He
Okay.
was playing not to lose, and he wasn't playing to win at a certain point. That was my take.
small game Harden.
Yeah, I definitely. And Embiid, you got to put him in there now too. Those two, and then lastly, not really a nitpick, but they should have like Era I think started the new books, right?
I've read the first chapter of the new book.
Oh, so you're only one. Okay.
Those books should have two huge statues. I know what you're thinking. You're thinking I'm going to say Camlin and Corbin. No,
No.
I'm going to say they should have a huge statue of Kraft and that little girl Meg of Camlin's, because they saved so many lives. It's unbelievable. Honestly, how many lives did Kraft save? He jumps on Calidus at the end and scratches them so they can. It just I know I've
It's true.
preached about this.
Kraft. Wait, could Kraft be the bright star?
I honestly thought about it. I'm not even joking. I'm like, this dude, he does everything for them. Everything. All over, and he's like tired after. I did find that funny where he like was sitting on Camlin because
It's
he
like
like tricked
Kraft
him.
tired. It's like you could
Yeah.
fly this whole time for 3 days. Like, yeah,
He's like, you guys
yeah, I
send me
could.
everywhere. I was like, it's true. This thing's done.
He's like,
The
yeah,
world on his back. And
Kraft
Meg
need
too.
break. That's
So anyway,
good.
I thought that was funny. I was like, these guys are just unsung heroes in the story.
Nitpicks. I'm trying to think. I don't really. You got
Or
anything?
final thoughts. Nitpicks or final thoughts. We want to leave on.
Maybe Meg, the 8-year-old, is actually Elyon in disguise.
Era.
No,
We have
I'm
Era.
thinking not.
We have children. There's no way an 8-year-old would pull this stuff off. I'm telling you. I've known 8-year-olds. There's no way in the world that they can. I'm sorry. It's just not possible.
Which is why Meg is actually Elyon.
I
Okay.
believe it.
Yeah. All right.
Something. Any final thoughts? We finished it.
I want to say like the Kraft moments and stuff like that, and Meg and little stuff like that. Even from the first book, I really enjoyed how he has characters interact with each other, and I mentioned this before, and it stayed through the whole series. Stayed true. Was just little moments that he throws in there that makes the books fun, that makes them feel like you're hanging out with your friends, and they say something or they'll do something and you don't even have to say anything, and he just throws a line. It's not about dialogue. It's just about Corbin did some dumb teenage stuff, and his friends are laughing at him behind his back, or his friends are or caught him doing this, or somebody else did something similar, and it's just like the little intricacies of life that he captured, and it's what made it fun.
100%. He does have a gift for tone. I mean, I truly believe that he knows when to hit those epic or those intimate moments with characters, and then he knows how to turn it on a dime and have a laugh. Like when Alcyon and Veritas are talking, and Veritas is like, "I'm just tired." He's like, "I'm so tired," and Alcyon's like, "Hey man, try rowing your boat to wherever they went, and then or running to that island and then rowing your boat
Come back.
Then tell me tired." And it's like, Veritas
Like,
cracks
yeah,
a
you're
smile.
right.
Yeah. So he's really good at just finding those moments and not overdoing it. Like I said, the Merry and Pippin aspect of Dath and Farrell, it worked. He knew when to insert them in moments in the story.
People are going to come and read Gwynne books because he can write a heck of a battle scene, and he can write really engaging. Like, you can get into the level 1 stuff and really enjoy it because he does a really good job with it. But the reason, to me, these stories spoke to me is because, given how he writes about it, Gwynne gets fatherhood. Gwynne gets brotherhood. Gwynne gets kind of all those interactions, all those little things you were talking about, so all those little things you were talking about, Yeti. You either get it or you don't get it, and he gets it, right? And he knows how to communicate it in ways that signal to us to kind of go, hey. And that, to me, was the main appeal of the book.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I mean, yeah, I don't think you could say it better than that era. I mean, those fatherhood, brotherhood, that carried the series for me and why I loved it. The moments between Corbin and his dad in the first book, you know what I mean? The moments between Ogle and McKinn in the second book, even those epic moments with Gar, like when Gar's walking out to fight that battle with the bear giants to avenge his dad. He's doing that for his father. Like he just knows how to write that stuff. All right. We did it, huh?
We did it. All 4 books.
Plenty more to go if we want to join in the journey. Yeah, I hope everyone enjoyed this. I know we did. Feel free to go to the Discord, Legendarium's Discord. There is a Gwynne channel if people are going to continue their series read. And yeah, thanks for Craig for letting us do this, play in his little sandbox. Thanks for Horizon Brave for starting this shindig. And thanks for the music. Oh boy, I'm going to get it this time. Jingle Punks?
Galactic Damages.
Galactic Damages. There
Yep.
it is. I almost had it.
You got half of it. That's well, I did
Always
cut
do.
you off, so yeah.
No, I was begging for it. I never remember galactic damage. This is great. But thank you guys. Thank you, John Gwynne. Maybe we'll try to sneak him in an interview. Huh? We'll see if we can get
Well,
him
yeah,
on.
we'll ask him. We'll
We'll see.
see.
Yeah, we'll beg. We'll beg. So for Eradandis, Soulution, myself, Yettibeats. We'll see you later.
See ya.
Bye, guys.